Hey friends, I have a really special treat for you. This is my daughter Liberty. If you have ever wondered who my videographer is, well, it has been my daughter. And one of the reasons why you haven't seen a lot of videos come out of me is because, unfortunately, she graduated and moved out of the house 1st of September. And so I lost my videographer. And she even moved 4 hours away. She lives now with my oldest son and daughter-in-law and my granddaughter. And so I don't see her very much anymore, unfortunately. Well, she's down for the week and she got herself a brand new Carver Girl Swirl for Christmas. And she wanted to have me tune it up for her, and I was really excited to tune it up for her, except I did something really stupid just a few days ago, and I'm nursing a sprained wrist and knees, and we're going to talk about that. So I decided that, hey, you know what we'll do? We're going to just turn this into a great video on Surfskate basics for beginners, because I can't tune up the board for her with this nursing this wrist. But it's perfect because I'm going to just walk her through exactly how to fine-tune her Carver and tune it up before she rides it. And that way, it'll be like if you're a Surfskate beginner at home, it'll be like I'm guiding you through the process and you can do it just like her. And if you want video tutorials on learning how to surf skate, check out my video course, Surfskating for Non-Surfers, at surfskatingfornonsurfers.com. Okay, so Surfskate basics for beginners. The very first thing that I want to cover is protective gear because, as I said, I did something stupid just like 4 days ago. I am usually very safety conscious. Anytime I'm skating something new, especially transitions, pump tracks, or new bowls, I always get full protective gear on. And me and a couple friends went out to a pump track about an hour and a half away from my house that we found. And for some reason, it was just one of those days where I just kind of like, we drove up to the parking lot and I went up to the pump track and I was like, oh, it's kind of a small little thing. And I had my board with me and I just jumped on, and before you know it, I'm doing a few more turns around the board and I just wasn't being conscientious. And one of those times where one moment you're up and the next moment you're down going, what the hell just happened and why the hell was I so stupid? So we are going to use my stupidity to your advantage. And the first thing we're going to say is, if you are a Surfskate beginner, you need to get a full set of protective gear. And that includes, for starters, a helmet. You got to protect your head, number one, of course. And then you're going to get a set of knee pads, elbow pads, and wrist guards. But with surf skating, I want to add one more very critical piece of protective gear, and that is hip pads. In the, I don't know, it's been over a year. I started October 15th of 2020. I got my first surf skates. How long I've been surf skating, and all this time, yeah, I did just hurt my wrist. But mostly, what I hurt the most is hips. All the time. I've hurt my hip, my right hip, because I'm goofy footed, so that's my front hip. And if that truck jackknifes, I've slammed on the ground with that hip a lot. So hip pads is a huge piece of equipment for surf skating especially. And I would say from my experience in getting hurt, for me, like the three most important pieces of protective gear are going to be a helmet, wrist guards, and hip pads for surf skating specifically. So Liberty, I have a set of protective gear for you that I'm going to send home with you along with your Girl Swirl board. Okay, so you're gonna wear your protective gear?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now let's get to tuning up your board before you ride it. The first thing I want to cover is just the tools you're going to need. If you're going to be a skater, there's a standard list of tools that you really just need to have and be familiar with. The first thing you're going to need is a skate tool. The most common design of skate tools you'll see is something that looks like this. It has about 5 tools on it. But I'm going to encourage you to get something like this, and the reason being is because we want something that has a bearing tool on it, and I'm going to explain why that's important later. You don't need a bearing tool, and I'm going to teach you how to work with your bearings without needing a bearing tool, but I personally use this quite a bit, and I think it's good. If you're going to get a skate tool anyway, go ahead and grab one with a bearing tool. And I'm going to go ahead and send you home, Liberty, with this cute white Spice Skate one. The next thing you're going to want, Lib, is some Bones Speed Cream. This is a lubricant that we use in bearings and other moving parts. You can also use something like a 3-in-1 multi-purpose machine oil. But for me, I just always use Bone Speed Cream. You're going to want some paraffin wax. This was like the smallest thing I could get on Amazon. It's this big brick, and then I just break off chunks. But I use paraffin wax to stop squeaking out of my pivot cup, and then I use a utility knife to get some wax shavings. Then this, eventually you're going to want to get a bearing cleaner. This is a Bones bearing cleaner. And we can just really quickly, you put your bearings on that. We don't need to go on that. I have other maintenance videos that cover this, but this is a very nifty little tool for cleaning your wheel bearings. Depending on the truck you want, you may want some marine grease. I don't think you're going to need that for this Carver CX. Another substitute for marine grease is white lithium grease. And I'll use marine grease or white lithium grease in like the Yamaraki to lubricate the spring within the truck housing. Another thing you'll want is some isopropyl alcohol. This is what we use for cleaning bearings and other parts. You want something that's at least 91%. And then beyond that, there's kind of some more advanced tools. A socket wrench set becomes very useful. I use this quite a bit. And then I also will use an electric drill. You don't need this, but I'll use a drill as well. And you'll need both Allen bits and Phillips head bits for the different screws that are on different setups. So those are kind of the basic tools that you'll be working with, but bare minimum, you need a skate tool, and you need to just know what you're doing with your board to know what this is all for and why it's even important. One thing I want to point out is don't ever use WD-40 in anything in a skateboard. The reason why is WD-40 attracts dirt more easily than other lubricants, and it also dries out. I'm going to just walk you through all of the steps that I take every time I get a new board. So flip this thing over, Lib. The first thing that I'm going to tell any Surfskate beginner is just familiarize yourself with the board, because honestly, I've worked with a lot of beginners where they're like afraid of their board. They don't know how it works. They're afraid they're going to break it. They're afraid of adjusting it wrong or something. So you really just want to get confident in knowing all of your parts. You want to know your wheels. You want to know your wheel bearings inside here. You want to know how your truck works. And I would encourage you to just take the whole thing apart. Don't be afraid of it. But the first thing let's do is Carver typically does a really good job of putting lube in their pivot cups. But almost every surf skate I've ever bought squeaks, and I have to put wax in the pivot cup before I ride it. So let me show you how to do that. Your pivot cup, first of all, is right here. It's called a pivot cup. It's this is what the pivoting arm of your truck, and it's a little plastic piece that sits inside there. So to get to our pivot cup, what we do is unscrew this is called your kingpin nut right here, because this, what it's attached to, is your kingpin bolt, okay? So go ahead and put your skate tool on that and just turn that counterclockwise to take that nut completely off of that kingpin bolt. Okay, that's it. Now pull that nut off. Now you're going to see a washer. Now what you want to do is pay close attention to how these parts are coming off so that you remember how it goes back on. So you see you have this bushing right here with the washer on top of it. Just remember that sequence when you're putting this back together. Now to loosen that bushing up, you can kind of just loosen that truck a little bit and then pull your bushing off, and then your truck comes right off, and then you see your pivot cup right there. And if you can look in there up close, you can see that Carver always puts lube in their pivot cups. So you shouldn't have squeaking out of a Carver pivot cup, but you might. And if you do, this is what you do, Lib. You're going to just take some household paraffin wax, and you want to make sure that it's household paraffin wax, because there's waxes that have like a lot of other oils and things in them. And you're going to get a utility knife and get some wax shavings just like this. And you don't need a lot, just something like that. And then go ahead and put those wax shavings inside your pivot cup. And that will stop any squeaking out of our pivot cup. And then just pay attention too to how this truck goes together. You have, look at all the parts here and just pay attention. You've got, on this Carver CX, you've got a washer followed by a bushing facing this way, and then the hanger goes over the top of that, followed by the other bushing and the other washer. Now, I'm going to teach you a little trick that I learned from somebody online, and I've done it, and it actually works really well. And that is to use a little white lithium grease on your bushings. So what that does is it kind of just loosens them up. It creates more of a looser feel in the truck, and it also prevents squeaking as well. You can get squeaking out of the bushings as well, not only out of the pivot cup. So, Lib, to do that, go ahead and pull those bushings off. And I don't like to use a lot because this will attract dirt, right? But let me see these bushings. And basically, I'll just put like a tiny bit of white lithium grease on these bushings, like so. I mean, it doesn't take much. You do it on this other one here. Okay, go ahead and put it back together. Okay, Lib, while you're on that kingpin nut, I want to cover adjusting your truck. That's going to be one of the most important things you're going to want to know as a beginner. Whatever truck you have, whether it's the Carver CX, the Carver C7, the Smooth Star Thruster, or the Almeraki, whatever it is that you have, you need to know your truck in and out, and you need to know how to adjust it. So on the Carver CX Liberty, the way that we adjust it is just by moving this kingpin nut, tightening it up or down. So obviously the tighter you make that, the tighter your truck is going to be, and the looser we make that, the looser your truck's going to be. I personally like a looser truck. That's something that you're going to want to do to your preference. And I get beginners who ask me, do you adjust your truck? The answer to that is I'm always adjusting. It's always part of this process is really tuning your personal preferences and finding out what works for you and experimenting with different feels. Play with it tight, see how it feels, then loosen it up, see how it feels, and you'll dial in what is best for you. The next thing that we want to do, Liberty, is just make sure that our wheels are spinning freely and just look at our bearings. But first, I want to just help you understand your bearings. So go ahead and flip this over and go ahead and use your skate tool to take off one of these wheels. And I'm not going to teach you how to take your bearings apart right now, but I am going to teach you how to take them out of the wheels and put them back into the wheels. That's something really important to know. Okay, so Liberty, when you pull off a wheel, you're going to see you've got the nut right there. Now pull off your wheel, and you're going to see on top here, you've got a speed ring. Speed rings you use to eliminate friction, and you should have a speed ring both right here on the truck axle and on the other side of the wheels. Now, Liberty, there's a couple ways that we can remove these bearings. We want to be careful that we don't damage them. So you can use a bearing tool like we talked about. If you don't have a skate tool with a bearing tool, you can just use your truck axle like this. You just put in your wheel bearing like so, and you just turn it at an angle like that carefully, and it'll just pop off. And then you're going to see, there's your bearing, and then that's what's called a spacer. Your spacer sits between the bearings just like so. Go ahead and take that bearing off using that axle. There you go. And now you've got your wheel bearings out. When you're putting wheel bearings back together, Lib, it's important that you don't ever push down on where the bearings sit inside there. And if you use some kind of a tool to push down on that sleeve, it could ruin your bearings. And that's why we use a bearing tool like so. The bearing tool will just sit inside there like that, and you can push down on that bearing without damaging any of your bearings. Now, if you don't have a skate tool with a bearing tool, you can just use your truck axles like so. You can put the bearing on like that, and then you put the wheel over like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off again, Lib, and you go ahead and practice just putting those wheel bearings back in using your skate tool. And don't forget your spacer. Okay, now go ahead and put your wheel back on, starting with the speed ring. And then your wheel, you got to align that spacer in there. Your other speed ring. And then when you tighten up that nut, you want to just make sure that your wheels are spinning freely. Okay, take that all the way tight. Now go ahead and spin that wheel, see if it spins. And I would just back that off just a little bit to make sure that that wheel is spinning more freely. Just a touch. Oh, that's too much. Yeah. What you want to do is you want to kind of, I move it around like this. You don't want a lot of play in that. There's just a little bit in that, but that will make that wheel spin a little bit more freely. That's one of our maintenance steps here, is just making sure that our wheels are spinning freely. But I wanted to just start by helping you understand the wheel bearings and how they fit inside the wheels with your spacer and your speed rings. But then, now that you understand that, now just make sure that all of your wheels are spinning freely, and if they're not spinning freely, just go ahead and back that nut off just a little bit so that it will spin better. So you can see this one here is stopping pretty quickly. This is one that I would loosen up just a little bit. Same thing with that one there. So I would go ahead and loosen up those just a little bit. Just back that nut off just a touch. You don't want a lot of play in there. That's probably good. That's plenty. And yeah, that's good. Now go ahead and try that one. That's good. And there you go. So now you've got no pivot cup squeak, you've got your truck adjusted, you've got your wheels spinning freely, you understand your bearings. I would say this Carver Girl Swirl is ready to go. Oh, and I almost forgot, Lib. Your final step, of course, is applying your Surfskate Love sticker.
I'm scared.
Nice. There it is.